Hey guys, it's your friendly neighborhood doc here. Just wanted to talk to you about the books that I picked up for this week. I do want to say that I miss picking up Green Lantern 15 by Jeremy Adams, but the shop is going to hold that book for me, and I will pick it up at a later time. So we'll talk about GL15 once I pick that book up. Alright guys, but let's go ahead and get started on this haul so that we can go ahead and move on to the next couple of videos. Okay, these first two books I'm going to talk about in greater depth when it comes to a couple of different series. So this first one is a facsimile edition of the 400th issue of Detective Comics with Batman and Robin. It's written by Frank Robbins with artwork by Neal Adams and inks by Dick Giordano. And I just wanted to show you some of the artwork in this title. It's a very solid book, just like everything from this era with Neal Adams was. You can tell the great detail in the characters, interesting designs, and interesting camera angles. But we will talk more about this particular book in the Greatest Hits series, which I haven't done a new video on in quite a while, so hopefully you guys will join me for that one. Alright, the next book I'm also going to talk about in a separate video is Wolverine #1 by Saladin Ahmed with art by Martin Coccolo and colors by Brian Valenza. I will show you a couple of pages of this, and I have to say that the artwork in this book is really, really solid. So I hope you guys will check out that video as well, because I want you to get excited for this book if you were anticipating it, and I also want to give you both the ups and the downs of this particular book. So look for this issue #1 to be covered in my next initial assessments video. Okay, now we can get down to the meat and potatoes of things, and we will start with Transformers issue 12 by Daniel Warren Johnson with art by Jorge Corona and colors by Mike Spicer. This is really sad because it marks the halfway point for Daniel Warren Johnson writing Transformers, but at the same time I have to say that Jorge Corona's artwork, he's really adapted it to look almost identical to Daniel Warren Johnson's, so that when the time came for him to take over the book, there wouldn't be such a jarring distinction between the two. And you can also tell that he has just as much love for these characters and as much excitement for these characters as Daniel Warren Johnson himself. But the story behind this particular issue is that Cliff Jumper has been captured, and amongst that, Optimus has to decide who he's going to protect. Is he going to go back to Cybertron and try to win the war on that front, or is he going to stay on Earth? And one of his Autobot friends is the one that really builds this up and gives him really I'm not going to say the opportunity, but it forces his hand. It forces him to make a decision about who is apparently more important to him, the Cybertronians or the humans and the Autobots that are back home on Earth. So it ends this second story arc extremely, extremely well. And again, the artwork is amazing. So if you guys haven't been picking this up, I would wait for the second trade, but I would go ahead and pick up the first trade of the first 6 issues and enjoy that and just wait for the second trade. But you cannot go wrong with this book. This book is definitely my pick of the week as far as all of the ones that I've picked up thus far. Green Lantern has been a strong contender, so we'll see if Hal Jordan can knock Optimus Prime off of his perch once I get a hold of that issue. Alright guys, the next book up is Spider-Man Reign 2, issue 3 out of 4. I believe it's 4. Anywho, this book is all out action and excitement, and it is a surprise because you got to see Mary Jane in the last issue, but it's almost like a telling, like a retelling, almost a what if. And so something happens to Mary Jane in this issue, and it creates something else within her. She becomes a different character in the Spider-Man mythos than the part that you are used to her playing. So the artwork in here, Carrie Andrews is leaning heavily on a Todd McFarlane type style, because we're talking about the Venom symbiote, and we're talking about the creation of Venom in this particular world. So a lot of the stuff, even if you look on the cover, you can see where he's got like the McFarlane foot, and how Spider-Man is twisted and contorted in his body. Looks very McFarlane-esque. So I've been saying that the whole time, that as you go along, you see a lot of McFarlane, but then again you see panels like this and it's totally Carrie Andrews. So I would say that if you're a fan of the first miniseries, check this out, because it is definitely building up to be something amazing, in my opinion. So you're not really sure what's going to happen between Miles and Peter Parker, but it looks pretty explosive if you ask me. So I would say, if you've been following this series, tune in for, I believe, no, I'm sorry, it's 5 issues. So it'll go 1 issue longer than the original miniseries, so there is still 2 issues of story left here. So come back next time to see what happens between Peter and Miles. Which I think it's funny that Miles still has that inverted color scheme of the Peter Parker's webs. Really a great book, guys. If you haven't been checking it out, I can highly recommend it, and tell you that it's just a lot of fun. But it also has a lot of heart, and it's got a great story to go along with it. All right. Here we have the oversized, at least it feels that way, issue of Department of Truth, issue 25. This deals with the assassination of JFK, which is what James Tynion and Martin Simmons have been building up to this entire time. And it discusses the true role that Lee Harvey Oswald, from his own words and his own perspective, I don't know, it's kind of a cop-out, in my opinion, because it pretty much says that this woman in red here, it was almost like she took over his mind in order to get him to do these things. And I'm not saying that he didn't want to, but it was almost like she infected his mind with the idea to kill Kennedy. But it also shows that she did it. And if that's a spoiler, I apologize. But it doesn't look 100% as though Lee Harvey was actually the one that pulled the trigger. So I think that is going to be the big reveal in this issue. But it's kind of like Game of Thrones. Some of these books, when you get into them and you dig into the narrative, they can only really go one way. And so what did you expect at the end of something like this? That Lee Harvey Oswald was going to just come clean and say, I did this. This was all me. There was no big conspiracy. I did this myself. No, you can't expect that. You can't expect that character to act that way. You can't expect the real Lee Harvey, if he were still alive, to say these things. So it really adds a meta level to the fact that the book is called The Department of Truth, because it's the truth that can only be the truth, if that makes sense. It's the only path that can be taken. So it's a really great book, and I'm really looking forward to the next issue, but it wasn't really the mind explosion that I thought that it might be. It didn't blow me out of the water and send me flying off into left field. It was a good book. It was a solid book. We've been all waiting for this book for quite some time. But I just don't think it had the punch and the echo that Tynion and company were expecting it to have, at least not for me. Okay, and the last book that I picked up this week, minus GL whenever I get a copy of it, is Amazing Spider-Man 57, written by Zeb Wells with art by Romita Jr. and Scott Hanna and colors by Menyes. This sets up Zeb and Johnny Jr.'s final run of issues, the last 4 parts, if you will, of this Amazing Spider-Man run. Well, actually, the last 3 parts, I guess, 58, 59, and 60. But it shows Tombstone at what you think is his weakest, and then all of a sudden, he makes bail. This leaves Janice and Peter Parker and Randy and even the superhero community in kind of a weird spot, including the White Rabbit, because she's tasked with something that she doesn't want to do. So it leads to a confrontation between She-Hulk and Spider-Man with Digger here. And the last page reveal, which I'm not going to show you, shows an interesting setup for what Janice's future is going to be in the book. I'm still digging John Romita Jr.'s artwork. I think maybe it is time for him to move on for just a little while so that he can get a breather from ASM. But then again, like I said, I figure that once he's done with this title, I don't ever see him bringing himself back for one more long run. I think this might be his swan song. Now, in the back of the notes, in the letters column, Niccolo alluded to something of a future for John Romita Jr. on the title, but he didn't say what it was. So it's possible that he's just gone for, maybe a year or 2, and then he'll come back, do another little 12-issue run, and then he's done. But I don't know. So we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. But I do have to say that this was a solid issue. No Paul. Yay! But Zeb Wells can write this character well as long as it's street level and it's grounded. He can do that. But he's gone off the rails so many times that it's hard to come back and shovel more stuff into my mouth because I've eaten so much already. Whether you want to call it crow, whether you want to call it whatever. I've already eaten so much from this particular run. So I'm glad to see that they're finishing up their run here, and I can't wait to see what comes next. All right, guys, so that is what I picked up. That is what I read. That is what I've enjoyed. What did you guys pick up at the shop this week? What are you digging? Are you reading Green Lantern? Are you enjoying Absolute Power from DC? I'm just reading Green Lantern. I'm not reading Absolute Power. I'm not reading any of the other tie-ins. I just happen to read that because I'm reading GL on the regular basis anyway. So, guys, thanks for joining me on this video, and we will catch you in the next one. Have a great day.